Hello, BookTube. I have a bit of a me-centered Monday mega stuff video. At least at the beginning, it's me-centered. We have some mail to look through. Uh, and a lot of the mail that I get these days, now that I've allowed a lot of my subscriptions to lapse, uh, comes down to me in a way that I thought I would share. Like, for instance, the Vineyard Gazette. This is an old-style broadsheet newspaper that is printed on Martha's Vineyard, the island off the coast of Massachusetts, where there's a popular vacation resort, at least it was before the pandemic, where I am a regular book reviewer. And so when I got this latest issue, of course, I did what all vineyard habitués have done over the decades, which is to turn immediately to the columns at the back, Vineyard Gardener especially, to just for a breath of nice, easy, fresh air, a de-stressing event right there on the page. But then, once I was done with that, the Vineyard Gazette is fantastic. It really is. Just incredible. High detail, black and white photography, all by local photographers. Just amazing. There's another one in here I want to show you. Yeah, look at that. That is just lovely. Look at how high definition that is. But I turned immediately to the center, past the obituaries and before the classified ads, to see if perhaps yours truly was in this issue, because I have a review pending at the Gazette. But I am not. That'll have to be the next one. And I have another book that I'm reviewing for them this week. So that's good. And I'm hoping that continues. It's always a little bit of a thin season. The winter is always a little bit of a thin season. People leave in droves. The population of the vineyard drops dramatically during the winter season. And so does the supply of books. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how that goes. But then the other two periodicals that I got are haymakers. They are absolutely huge. They are just pillars of my periodical reading. I got the TLS and the New York Review of Books. The TLS is the London Times Literary Supplement, the greatest English language review journal in the world. At least from my perspective, because they have traditionally reviewed a wide variety of books, including lots of scholarly stuff that wouldn't get reviewed outside of specialty journals otherwise. They have had editorial shakeups lately, quite a few of them. That may change. In other words, that semi-scholarly emphasis may change. I could easily picture it going onto the chopping block. I haven't read this issue yet because it just came in the mail. But one thing that I will be interested in, the me-centered thing that I will be interested in, is when a major journal assigns somebody to review a book that I have myself reviewed. Then you pay extra attention to those reviews because you want to know if the writer, especially if it's a writer whose work you want to know what they do. And if you're a reviewer and you're in that kind of a relationship with something that you see in a journal, you're immediately going to start lining up the pros and cons, the excuses and the complaints and whatnot. Like, for instance, the very first review here is by Anne Kennedy Smith, who I believe is a biographer. She's currently working on a biography of Cambridge women. I could swear that I've read something else by someone with that name. But one way or another, she does a roundup review of books about Sylvia Plath, including Heather Clark's gigantic new biography, Red Comet, which I reviewed for the Christian Science Monitor, which I think is tremendous, just tremendous. And so my first reaction when I saw this double-page spread was that Anne Kennedy Smith got a lot more space than I did. I only had 800 words. But then I realized, okay, she has a lot more space than I do, but she's reviewing 4 different books. So Red Comet probably won't be more than a couple of paragraphs in here, because you got to do your throat clearing first about who Sylvia Plath was and all that, and you got to do your ending, and you got to give at least a paragraph to each of these other books. So I haven't read it yet, but I'll be interested to see what her verdict is on the one book in there that I read and reviewed and loved. Then another major thing, the book review journals are going to be full of politics for a while now, for at least till the end of the year. And this is a little bit of surprise to me. I knew that they might get somebody to review one of these make-weight new biographies of Joe Biden. Since he won the presidential election, he won convincingly in the Electoral College, and he won overwhelmingly in the popular vote. And is making history largely because the sitting president of the United States is saying, I won the election. There's no proof of that. There's abundant proof to the contrary. But it's so damaging. He has 90 million Americans who will believe that if he says it, and may act accordingly. And if you believe that somebody stole an election from your anointed candidate, if you're crazy and you're in gun country, and you have the permission, the absolutely telegraphed permission of the guy you think should be president forever, what's the number one way you're going to act accordingly? You're going to take a shot at Joe Biden, literally. But one way or another, I knew that they would do that, but I didn't think the TLS would get Michael Wolff, the author of Fire and Fury, to review one of those make-weight books. But they do, so I have no idea how that's going to go. God help us all if we are in a position where Michael Wolff is starting to give scholarly analysis of presidential elections, of presidential politics. God help us all if that's true. But the other thing that's of note in this issue is the books of the year. Every year, the TLS will write to all of their most famous contributors, their best contributors, former editors, famous writers, that sort of thing, and get them to reflect in a couple of paragraphs on their books of the year. Those authors are not compelled to do only books that were published in this year. They aren't compelled to do anything. They can be as idiosyncratic as they want. And I always read those things with a fine-tooth comb, specifically looking for overlap. Because a lot of these authors don't know each other. They don't talk with each other. They don't clear their accounts with each other ahead of time. So books that crop up over and over again always get my interest. But in terms of the best books of 2020, well, that's not what the TLS's Books of the Year is ever meant to do. But if it were, and Lord knows other people are starting to come out with such lists, I thought I would remind you that there is only one such list that matters in any way, and it's mine. And it isn't out yet. It comes out in December. On the online literary journal, Open Letters Review, I have my late lamented literary book blog, Steve Reads, revives at the end of the year to do the year's best and worst books. The top 10 books in 15 or 16 categories that I read, and the worst fiction and the worst nonfiction, also 10. It's a bigger, broader, more wide-ranging list than any periodical will give you, including the TLS Books of the Year, including the Publishers Weekly has already done one. Entertainment Weekly will do one. Library Journal will do one. New York Review of Books, the New York Times, famously, the Washington Post. I don't usually toot my own horn in this way, in this unironic way, but my list is better than theirs in every conceivable way. Not only because I don't have to worry in my list or let my list be affected by which publisher is spending $5,000 for a full-page color ad 2 pages away. I don't have to worry about that. No editor is going to have a very soft word in my ear about how so-and-so is a friend of the journal. There's nothing like that is going to happen, so you don't have to worry about it happening. Also, you already know my critical standards. You don't know the people who make these other lists from a hole in the wall. And I read more than the people who are putting together those lists. All of them combined. The people who put together the Post list, the New York Times list, the Wall Street Journal will have such a list. And they will enlist all sorts of people to contribute to those lists. And if you take the sheer number, all the books that those people read in the year 2020, that were published in the year 2020, and you lump them all together, everyone, the numbers still don't equal mine, alone. And my lists are funny. So in addition to everything else, you have no reason. You can read these other lists. Certainly, I don't mind. I'm not possessive. There's only one that counts. There's only one that's definitive. I'm going to have a ball reading the books of the year for the TLS. I always do. But it need not distract you from the Holy Writ from Mount Sinai, which is coming. And then the other thing is the New York Review of Books, which I noticed ordinarily Mark Richardson of Richardson Reads posts his New York Review, usually from his library office as soon as he gets it. And when that happens, I'm always fuming. I'm happy to see it, but I'm always fuming because he gets it long before I do. Maybe he put in a word. I never know how far Mark's influence extends. I've noticed that my New York Review has been getting to me a lot faster. So maybe he put in a word. But one way or another, it's the same me focus here. I haven't read this yet. It's a stellar, absolutely stellar lineup of writers this time around and many times around. And I worry that this New York Review will be heavily political. I don't see how it could avoid being heavily political. But deep in the bowels of this issue, there is, if I remember correctly, there is a writer going on at length about a book that I have also reviewed. Where is it? If I remember, it was a writer that I like, Michael Gora. Michael Gora does a long review of The Silence by Don DeLillo. Don DeLillo's little novella, his new book. And I haven't read this, I haven't glanced at it, but I also reviewed The Silence by Don DeLillo. I reviewed it for Big Canoe News. the #1 news source for northern Georgia here in the United States. I don't think that review has run yet. I don't think it runs until December, just because of the nature of the printing schedule at Big Canoe News. I don't know one way or another. But I had 800 words. Michael Gora has a little bit longer than that. And I have a feeling that he is going to give a very proper establishment read to The Silence. He's going to talk about it as a serious work of literature with pros and cons. He's going to talk about late style. Everybody who reviews this thing is going to talk about late style. I do. You're going to have to. Because DeLillo's in his mid-80s, and this is a tiny book. But I have a feeling that when Michael Gora is done, he's going to give an establishment verdict on it, which is that it's a serious work by a serious author, and here are the things that are right about it, and here are the things that were wrong about it, and here are the thought-worthy things about it. And none of that is true, as I make clear in my own review, where I rip it to shreds and leave bloody pieces behind. So as soon as I have that review, as soon as that review is out for the world to see, I'll make sure to let you know, so that you can counterbalance it with whatever Michael Gora writes. But that was the periodicals. And then we have mail. We have 2 pieces of mail. One is a little odd. It's a little green package, so it's not... I did not get buried in mail this week, the way, for instance, Thomas at SFF 180 did. I don't know how many of you watch his channel. He concentrates on science fiction and fantasy, and he recently did it today. He did a 2-video feast, one devoted to the print galleys that he was getting, and one devoted to the e-galleys that he was getting. Amazing stuff. That doesn't happen to me. At least this week it didn't happen to me. So what have we got here? Okay, this first one is from Black Lawrence Press, and it's a slim volume of poetry. Thank you for requesting a review copy from Black Lawrence Press. I most certainly did not. Perhaps another Open Letters editor did. We really appreciate your interest in our books. And the book in question here is by Shanna Compton. It is Creature Sounds Fade. Nice design. Nice cover. Don't know why the title is in parentheses. Maybe it's an allusion to closed captioning that you would get on a TV show. Do we dare to read one of these? Do we dare to do it? Let's do one. We'll just do one just to see what we're in for. I don't think I did not request this book, so somebody might have. This one is called Paper Trees, and it has staggered line breaks that don't make any sense, staggered stanza breaks that don't have any justifiable reason for them. There's no scansion involved here. It's just the author, Shanna Compton, felt that that's the way it should look. But let's see what it says. The picked edges of the birch's bitter bark, red gold admixture of mind, a fleeting logical thread she keeps tangling around her spindle body. You'll have to look elsewhere, burdened, bent under the weight of castigating hunger. She's mineralized like wood gone stone, her offerings all burnt into a chain of ash. She blisters your vision even after you look away, floats beyond the divot of her hothouse grave. Okay. All right. Well, maybe we could have picked a different poem. The original invocation there, the image there of birch bark, is good. That is good. Bitter bark, red gold admixture of mind, a fleeting logical thread she keeps tangling around her spindle body. Some of that still looks to birch bark and shedding birch bark, and is kind of interesting. Then it becomes about a person, and I don't follow it after that. Castigating hunger is good. But anyway, this is a slim volume of poetry. I'm going to have to ask around on the Open Letters Review masthead. Those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I'm one of the editors of the online literary journal called Open Letters Review. Where we review new releases all over the place, and we have fun doing it. We are the inheritor of the mantle of Open Letters Monthly, an online literary journal that I started with 2 friends back in 2007. We do a lot of reviews, and it's a lot of fun. And one of those editors may have requested this from a publicist and not thought to include their own address in the requesting email. So the publicist maybe thought, well, they didn't leave their address and I don't want to bother them or look like a piker, so I will just go to Open Letters Review and see what the mailing address is, and that would be here. So that might explain why I have Shanna Compton's new book. I'll ask around and find out. But then we have a package from a standard thing from a publisher that might be something I requested, but no, it's not something I requested. Certainly not. But Whew. Okay, well, all right. Well, you take what you get in a mail haul. Let's see what we have here. This is a finished copy. Comes out in early December, and it's by an author I really like. This is Proustian Uncertainties by Saul Friedlander, a great Holocaust historian. The subtitle is On Reading and Rereading in Search of Lost Time. So that could be really good. I love this author, and I love hearing stories about people who read and reread in search of lost time, what my generation knows just reflexively as remembrance of things past. I love reading stories about people who have huge swaths of it committed to memory. I think it's the greatest thing ever written. It's one of those books where I feel like somehow or other, somewhere down the line, I will have my road to Damascus moment and understand why people love remembrance of things past. I feel the same way about Dickens, where I figure if I wait long enough and keep an open mind and keep trying, I will eventually get the magic key. Maybe this book will be it. If anybody can, it's Saul Friedlander. So let's see what we have here. Published a century ago. Oh God, has it been that short a time? Marcel Proust's masterpiece In Search of Lost Time continues to be one of the most influential and debated pieces of literature. In this book, the historian Saul Friedlander draws on his own life spent investigating the ties between history and memory, between identity and perception, to present a magnificent re-examination of this formative work. Across the 7 volumes of In Search of Lost Time, the narrator's life closely aligns with that of Proust himself. Yes, indeed. But they diverge in strange ways. Even within the fictional text, Friedlander reminds us, the narrator makes numerous contradictory and often jarring statements, many of which have mostly been ignored or minimalized by scholars. Some of these discrepancies stem from the narrator's attempt to marginalize his part Jewish background or even disparage Jews, though we know that Proust was affected by the Dreyfus affair and loved his Jewish mother. Proust was openly gay, but his protagonist only alludes to his sexuality. And finally, Friedlander asks, do the narrator's reflections on time, on death, on memory, as well as the many paths and identities leading to the image that he ultimately projects to readers, do these things mirror what we know about the author's own perceptions? Okay, great. Well, it's coming right up, so I can read it right away. It might be the magic key that unlocks Proust for me. If that were true, I would owe Saul Friedlander a debt I could never repay. He is an award-winning Israeli-American historian and currently a professor of history emeritus at UCLA. He was born in Prague, and he won the 2008 Pulitzer Prize for his book, The Years of Extermination, Nazi Germany and the Jews, 1939 to 1945, which has been reissued by its original publisher in a very sturdy trade paperback, and I highly recommend it. Highly recommend Years of Extermination. It's a very good book. So, it's an author whose bona fides I cannot possibly quibble, who loves this work and has read it intensely and closely. Okay, all right, I will clear the dock and give it a try. Maybe this will be the book that does it. Great. So what an odd pairing of books. They're both very slim. But otherwise, contemporary poetry and a great Holocaust historian. So there you go. That is your Mega Stuff video. It's really a mail haul video. It's really an old-style mail haul video. So I'm not hauling in any other Mega Stuff. So I think I'll just call it a mail haul video, and we'll skip the Mega Stuff until tomorrow, when I'm sure there'll be more to chat about. In the meantime, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.